The doors of your car will close automatically. Please keep your head and arms inside and remain seated at all times. And please, no smoking. Thank you.
Matterhorn Matt presents Matterhorn Mondays.
Hey there, Mountaineers! Welcome to episode 16 of Matterhorn Mondays. I'm Matterhorn Matt, and this week my guest is Alex, a historian, and we brought back Manny from Ready Set Disney because you guys like him and we like having him on the podcast. So, for the new listeners who don't know who you guys are, Alex, why don't you go ahead and start off explaining your channel?
Sure. Well, my channel has a few different shows on it. The first one is my most popular one, which is my lecture series that talks about each ride and its history all the way up until today. I've got another show that is my vlog series where I go into the park and talk about items and places of historical interest. And I have a Fun Fact Friday series where I talk about one fun fact about the park and go into depth about it.
And Manny, why don't you go ahead and explain your channel as well?
Hi everyone, I'm Manny. I live in the country of Australia. I'm a huge Disney fan. I host the channel Ready Set Disney on YouTube. I post videos on the history of the parks, sometimes little POVs, stuff like that. I like to vary up, but majority of my channel is history and secrets of the Disney parks.
Yeah, guys, if you don't know who these two amazing YouTubers are, you should definitely go out and give them a subscribe because they make really amazing videos that you should be watching every second of your life. You should just be playing them in the background wherever you are and just watch their videos. And this week's topics are new floats for the Pixar Play Parade, Disney movies we'd like to see sequels to, and we're going to talk about how we all got interested in Disney. So I'm going to preface this first topic. I really didn't want to talk about this because I'm so burnt out on just everything Pixar related, but the news has to be delivered to the viewers. So as some of you guys might not know, 3 different floats have been announced for the Pixar Play Parade, which is going to be moving over to Disneyland during the Pixar Fest thingamabob. And 3 floats. One is Inside Out themed. One is the Luxo Jr. Lamp thingy with the bouncy ball. And then there's a third Up float. And I just wanted to quickly get your guys' thoughts on the new floats and your ideas, or not your ideas, your thoughts on the Pixar Play Parade moving to Disneyland. So, Alex, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Oh, me? Oh, okay. Well, first off, I have to say I've never really been a fan of the Play Parade. When I worked in California Adventure, it was always going on, and it was just like twice a day, seeing it every single day out. And the fact I didn't like it drove me crazy. So, but I do have to say that when I saw the concept art for the new floats, I was pretty amazed. I was like, you know what? They're tiny floats, but they look really cool, and the Up one looks kind of cool. A little weird though, because it's got like a little miniature house with little miniature balloons all over it. But I think that looks pretty cool, and for people who actually like the Play Parade, I think it will impress.
Hopefully. And I just wanted to give a small little point out something small. Bing Bong is in the Pixar or the Inside Out themed float, and Bing Bong is the greatest character in Disney Pixar history, and he hasn't gotten enough love when it comes to the parks. I believe this is like his first appearance in any Disney park, and I'm just really excited that they thought to include Bing Bong along with Happy and Sadness. But Manny, why don't you go ahead and give your thoughts on the subject?
Well, when I was much younger, I used to really enjoy the Pixar Play Parade whenever I was at California Adventure, but in my recent visits over the past few years, I've found myself to not really be attracted to it. Usually if it's passing through, I'll sort of just walk by and get to my destination, but seeing these new floats being added in the new locations probably going to draw me back. And as Alex said, I really like the designs of the new Inside Out and Up floats. I think they're really creative. They're not like massive, expansive, flat floats. They've got dimension. They have a few different characters on them. They're very colourful. I enjoy the designs, and I also enjoy the movies. I'm just excited to see where it goes, honestly. And the music, I wonder if they'll just utilise the not so classic Pixar Play Parade theme, or they'll just incorporate movie themes. I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I've only seen this parade, I'm sure maybe only once, for good reason, because, like Alex, I'm not much of a fan of this parade. I remember the first time I saw it, I was approached by the Nemo, you know how they like control him with like a puppet, and it just looked so creepy to me. I just couldn't get over how creepy Nemo looked, and he was like just staring right in my face, and his eyes, I don't know.
Did his eyes turn red?
I feel like
Nemo
they did
just
at one
stared into
point.
your soul.
But yeah, I'm not a big fan of this parade, and I'm not a big fan of the fact that they're moving this to Disneyland, because
Agreed.
I also kind of wanted to talk about our thoughts on why Disney is pushing Pixar so much into the Disney parks, you know, to this extent, replacing Paradise Pier with Pixar Pier. Of course, it all loops back to Pixar Pier because it's really one of the biggest problems of this whole Pixar Fest thing. But I don't know. I like Pixar. Don't get me wrong. I love Pixar. The movies, they're amazing, but I just don't get why they're pushing it so much into the parks. I mean, we already have a decent amount of rides. I can't even remember if Bug's Life is a Pixar movie, but if it is, we have a Bug's Land, we have a Cars Land, we have the Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, we have, oh man, I can't think of any. I think that
Submarine
might be
Voyage?
Submarine, yeah, the Nemo Submarine Voyage. We have Toy Story Midway Mania. I'm sure there's more, but I just can't think of any. But I just wanted to go ahead and get your guys' thoughts on the fact that Disney just loves Pixar so much. They're just throwing it anywhere they can in the parks.
Okay, here is my thought on why they're pushing Pixar so much. As I've told you in the past, that the California parks, being Disneyland and California Adventure, they're usually the guinea pigs for the rest of the company. Mm-hmm. And they usually try out new ideas here at Disneyland and California Adventure first, and then just to test the waters to see if they work. Well, I'm thinking that the Pixar Pier is the start of something else. So they are pushing this whole Pixar thing so that way they can see if Pixar Pier ends up being super popular. Because, as you know, Pixar Pier isn't really much of a major change. It's just a slight, re-skinning of the Paradise Pier. So they're not investing too much money in it. But the money that they are investing, I think that they want to see if Pixar Pier ends up being super popular, because possibly they might end up building a Pixar land over at Walt Disney World. That's my little opinion on it.
Okay. What about you, Manny?
This whole Pixar Pier debacle has really confused me, because it's like, oh, we're putting in Pixar Fest and we're putting a whole Pixar themed land into Disney California Adventure, yet we're going to have Pixar fireworks and a Pixar parade over at Disneyland. I don't understand why they're separating it between the two parks, because can you imagine if like Summer of Heroes was in Disneyland too?
Yeah, that's a really great example.
Yeah, and like if Season of the Force spread over to California Adventure, it doesn't make sense. Although there are Pixar rides in Disneyland, I think the primarily Pixar-focused park, even prior to this point, is DCA. And I don't know, it just feels to me very inconsistent. I'm sure there's a reason, even if it's not a very good reason. I'm sure it's there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The fact that I don't even know. I haven't really kept up with the news about the Pixar Fest. I don't know if they're adding new things to California Adventure besides Pixar Pier, but it is really strange that they're pushing it to both parks and not just one or the other, like you said.
Yeah, that is strange. And to be honest, I really don't feel that that the Play Parade belongs in Disneyland, and it just seems weird. Like, Disneyland usually has parades that feel Disneyland-like. I mean, the only other parade I can think of that had nothing to do with Disneyland yet still kind of played at Disneyland was the Lion King parade back in the 90s, which I loved as a little kid. And that parade, I mean, it had nothing to do with the park, but they were trying to promote the movie and stuff like that. So I don't know, but I mean, it ended up being a good parade. But the Play Parade isn't on the Lion King parade level.
Oh, yeah.
And yet they're moving it to Disneyland Park. So I don't know. It just doesn't fit there.
It's interesting to me because you brought up the Lion King parade as an example. Because through the 90s, I think they used to do several single IP themed parades. Like, you can go back to the Hercules parade, the Aladdin parade in Walt Disney World. We don't see much of that anymore, do we? A bit of a sidetrack.
No. Yeah.
I mean,
that's interesting.
There was really nothing wrong with the Soundsational parade. I love that parade.
Me too.
The music is just super upbeat. It just gives me a good feeling, I don't know.
Yeah, I love
Soundsational.
Soundsational.
Yeah, I think it sounds sensational.
Pun of the day. Do you guys have any last thoughts on the Pixar Play Parade or just Pixar in general that you wanted to bring up?
Well, in regards to the
ahead.
parade, I'm sure I'll see it next year when I go back in June. I'm sure I'll see it. I don't know if I'll like it more. It'll be interesting to see new floats, but I don't know. This whole Pixar Pier and Pixar Fest debacle's really thrown me into a bit of a loop. I don't see their plan, honestly. I don't know what they're aiming for.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. We'll probably never get a reason also. And one other thing that I forgot to bring up was the fact that Paint the Night is coming back to DCA. And I, for one, am a huge fan of Paint the Night. It's one of my favorite nighttime Disneyland parades that I've seen, which is, I haven't really seen a lot, but it's my favorite out of the ones I've seen. But I'm really, I mean, it doesn't make sense that they're moving it to DCA, but moving the Pixar Play Parade to Disneyland. Like, they just switched them. I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, I was just going to say, what did you think about that? Because, excuse me, I just, swallowed a bug. In any case, I'm thinking in my head, okay, if anything, the Play Parade kind of belongs at DCA. I mean, it's always been there. It just feels like a DCA kind of parade. And then the Paint the Night is kind of like the newer version of having an electrical parade, which I actually really hate Paint the Night. But I mean, in any case,
it's sacrilegious.
Oh, come on! It's just this huge curmudgeony of sound and light, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's got 3 songs playing at the same time.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, to be honest.
I mean, did you notice that it plays 3 songs? It plays the song that the float is passing by. So if it's Monsters, Inc., you hear the Monsters, Inc. song. Plus, you hear the Paint the Night song. Plus, you hear the original score of the
electrical parade.
The electrical parade, all at once. I'm like, come on, that sounds like a huge cacophony of noise. And then it's just nothing but a bunch of lights that dazzle people. I mean, really, the only way I can see myself enjoying the Paint the Night parade is if I was on ecstasy or something. But okay, so back to what I was saying. So, because I'm so nice, was that even though I don't really like Paint the Night all that much, I mean, I don't hate it. I just don't like it in comparison to the electrical parade. But it feels like it belongs at Disneyland nonetheless, because it feels like it's a sequel to the electrical parade. and it makes sense having it at Disneyland because of the history of the Electrical Parade. So moving it to DCA just sounds really strange. I don't know that it'll look cool at DCA. You know? Yeah.
I feel like at least a plus of moving it to the DCA parade route is, I believe that route from the route from Paradise Pier to Hollywood Land is longer than the Disneyland parade route, and it has more space. So maybe it'll be easier to get a spot. I'm not sure, but thematically, I'm not sure. I think I agree with you, but at least we get something semi-new.
And I just wanted to bring up the fact that the Pixar Play Parade has been going on since 2008. That's almost that's more than 9 years, I think. That's
Next year it'll be 10 years when Pixar Fest is on.
Oh my gosh, that's just really crazy to think about. Okay, enough of Pixar, because I'm sure everyone else listening is super worn out on us bashing on Pixar in the parks. So let's go ahead and move on to our second topic, which is Disney movies we'd like to see sequels to. Now, I just want to throw out a couple of rules. No, okay, there's not going to be any rules. I thought I could think of one, but no.
That was pretty fast. You suddenly decided you were going to put rules, and then suddenly decided you weren't. That was pretty quick.
I had one like right on the top of my head, but I forgot it right as I said I'm going to lay down some ground rules. So there's not going to be any rules. So let's see. I'm sure for a lot of you guys there are Disney movies that you've watched as a kid that didn't have a sequel to it, and you're just begging and clamoring for that. I don't know, that sequel. I couldn't think of an example, but a sequel to a movie that you guys have loved as a child. So I just wanted to bring up this little topic for all three of us to discuss. And Manny, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Quick question: could this include Pixar Animation Studio movies, or is this just Walt Disney Animation Studios?
Yeah, okay, it can include Pixar.
I might be in the minority here, but Bug's Life maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I've always had a soft spot for the movie. I'm not sure where the plot could go, but I don't know. To me, even though I think I've heard that Walt hated sequels and a lot of people don't like them. To me, seeing those same characters come back on the big screen, it's kind of like it's nice. You know what I mean? Like even seeing the Incredibles 2 teaser last week, which is something I would have asked for before it was announced for this topic. It just felt really nice, you know, because like these characters you've become acquainted with, you get to see new footage and you get to hear new stories. It's to me, it's a nice thing as long as the sequels are done well.
Yeah, I mean, Bug's Life would have been my choice too, because I don't know, it's been years since I've seen that movie, but the last time I've seen it, I remember I liked it a lot, and it's really, I don't know. I'm just gonna silently add that movie to my list of Disney sequels I need. Alex, what about you?
Well, I actually have two movies that I would like to see sequels to. I mean, you know, what's funny was when you told me about this topic, I thought, gee, like, you know, there couldn't be a single movie I could possibly think of, because whether or not you want a sequel, Disney always gives you one. So even if it's like a really bad, like, okay, like Atlantis: The Lost Empire, that kind of failed at the box office, but nevertheless they gave you a sequel. You know, even though audiences said they didn't want to see it. So but in any case, I did find two movies that I actually wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to, okay, one of them I actually do. So okay, so first movie, and this is the lesser of the two that I would like to see a sequel of, would actually be a sequel to the Tron Legacy movie.
Oh, okay.
So I know a lot of people
are.
I know a lot of people are big fans of the original Tron from the 80s. Interesting thing about it was that it also kind of failed at the box office, but it became one of those cult hit movies. And then they created the sequel, Tron Legacy, which I actually thought was really good. When was that? Like 2009 or something? But
2011, I think.
Oh,
Just off the top of
2011?
my
Okay.
head.
It was. I actually liked that one. I thought it was really cool the way that it looked and the story and the end of it when the guy's just like well, what did he say? He said something. I can't remember it now. Jeez, you guys make me forget everything. Anyway, there is like this really heartwarming moment, you know, where the original character remembers his son riding like a bicycle or something, and then he says like, "Oh, go get him, kiddo." Anyway, that always squeezed a tear out of my eye. So I don't know. I would kind of like to see a sequel to that one, and see what's happening on the grid since then.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my first one. And okay, and my second one is one that I really, really want to see a sequel to. And have you guys seen the movie Saving Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I loved that one. And I mean, I know it was mainly about P.L. Travers, but the parts that showed Walt Disney and showing Tom Hanks as Walt Disney, I thought was really great. I think he nailed,
Yeah, he really
Walt
did.
Disney's part.
That was phenomenal, especially
Yeah.
the Disneyland scene. I loved that.
Oh yeah, that was my favorite part of the whole movie, was when they went to Disneyland. And you know what's funny? I have a funny story about that. And I'm sorry, I know we're like on a topic here, but I had to share this. I was working in the parks the day that they were doing the filming for that.
What?
And believe me, they did the filming all in one day for that
What?
scene.
That's
Really?
Yeah, because the park was so busy, that they couldn't afford to do it over a matter of a couple days because it would have taken forever.
Mm-hmm.
So they had one day to film those scenes in the park. And I remember being there and seeing the replica of Walt's private limo
Wow.
out front. Everybody was taking pictures of it. Tom Hanks was in the park dressed as Walt Disney.
Oh my
And
gosh.
Main Street was all blocked off, and it was only to hired background people. What do you call them? Extras.
Yeah, extras.
Yeah, it was accessible only by the extras that were playing people from the 1960s, and they
Wow.
brought out these old popcorn carts that used to exist at Disneyland in the 60s. And then they had all those old Mickey Mouse balloons that had the dark ears to represent the clubhouse ear hats. And then I saw, as I was crossing Main Street, which I didn't know that they had blocked off a certain part of Main Street, and I crossed right into the working area that they had for the scene. And I saw Tom Hanks walking down Main Street waving at people as Walt Disney. And I swear to you, for a second there, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Walt Disney. And it was like the coolest thing just to see that. And then they kicked me out of the area. So that was really fun. And that's a memory that I will always have about it. So anyway, that movie
That's
was a
amazing.
great movie. And I would like them to actually do kind of a sequel to it, in the sense that I think that Disney should do a movie about Walt Disney, because everyone else is making documentaries about Walt Disney except for the company itself. So I
True.
think that they should do a movie.
I think a movie on the creation of Disneyland could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that would be awesome.
Oh
I
my
have a,
gosh.
just I don't want to sidetrack a little bit for a sec. If Alex, because you said they blocked off all of Main Street, did they like open like the flow corridors behind Main Street to let guests into the park? How'd that all work out? I'm really curious.
Those flow corridors didn't exist back then.
Oh yeah,
um,
true.
What?
Yeah. So
Oh
what
my
they
gosh, this is so crazy.
So what they did was they had guests that were walking through the shops. So they created like
Oh.
a
wow.
line that went through all through the shops, and they told people, okay, so you can't go out the front doors of the shops, you can't go onto Main Street itself. And of course, the filming was also done early in the morning. so there weren't as many people. And back then, Disneyland actually had down seasons. So they did it on kind of an off season, on early morning, like extra magic hour morning. And then even when the filming kind of spilled into the opening of the park, they had people walking through the shops of Main Street, and they had like areas where you couldn't get too close to the windows of the shops. And let's see, and then so Main Street was closed from Town Square all the way to the Coke Corner, and that's how far it was closed. That was early in the morning, and then they needed to do the Fantasyland filming. So, like I'd say, like an hour after the park opened, then they got rid of everything on Main Street and moved over to Fantasyland to do the scene where they get on the carousel. And that part of Fantasyland was never opened to the public, just to make sure that no one walked there. And then they had the characters crossing the moat and then getting into Fantasyland, and then they filmed in Fantasyland, which was really cool because instead of using CGI to make Fantasyland look like it used to, they just went ahead and just blurred it out so it looked blurry in the background. Yeah. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
There's so many good details in that movie. Yeah. It's really good.
But I just remember, like, out front they had back when the main gates used to say Disneyland on it, they had those little Disneyland posts that said Disneyland. And they had that. And then I remember seeing the little fence that surrounds the Mickey Mouse floral. The fence had attraction posters on it, the way it used to have in the 60s. And that was really cool. And so every time I see that movie, I tell my family, I was there that day when they filmed it. They did it all in one day. And they kicked me out.
Oh my gosh, that's
hilarious.
That is a really good movie, honestly, and that sounds like a dream come true, to be walking through all that, seeing Tom Hanks playing the part as Walt Disney. He really was really the perfect casting choice for that, because he really nailed the acting in that movie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And about Tron, excuse me, the original Tron, I'm not sure if I brought this up in a previous episode, but I was not a fan of the original Tron. I don't know, it was just really weird. Like, it's like the suits are all just like green screen, and I don't know, I just really can't explain it. It's just really weird. But I've yet to see Tron Legacy, and I've heard it's pretty good. But the only thing I know about that movie is that Daft Punk did the soundtrack for it, and I'm like really into that kind of music, like the synthy, feel good kind of music. But yeah.
Nice.
Let's see. I guess I'll go ahead and say mine. I only have one. No, actually, I have two. Well, maybe. Yeah, okay, I have two. My first and main one is Treasure Planet, and I said this a couple weeks ago. Treasure Planet is one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. It's just... I don't think I could explain it in the previous episode I talked about it in, and I'm not going to be able to explain it in this episode either, but it's just it's just like a heartwarming story. The whole CGI integrating with the 2D animation, it's just like really seamless, and some parts of the movie you don't even notice are CGI, and it's just a really great story also. And I remember seeing the concept art for the canceled sequel, and it just really blew my mind. It just made me sad because I didn't get to see, or the whole world didn't get to see, a sequel to Jim Hawkins' adventure. And my second one, it doesn't really, I guess, count because there's already being a sequel made to it, but I'd say Mary Poppins. I'm sure some of you guys are gonna get super angry at me because Mary Poppins is a classic. There's no need for a sequel, even though Disney's already making a sequel. But I don't know. I just really love to see, like the original cast, all that, everybody. I don't know. There's just something about Mary Poppins that just makes me want to see her again. Not like the soft reboot kind that they're doing now, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on Treasure Planet. I really like that movie also. That'd be cool.
And I had the kind of computer game that came with it. I think it was like called Battle at Procyon or something like that. I don't know. It's just a really big part of my childhood. That's a big reason why I like it. And if you guys don't have any other movies you wanted to bring up, we can go ahead and move on to the final topic.
I was going to ask something real quick, just as like a last little breath of that topic. Could I? I'm wondering if I could say Aladdin, and I understand there's already two sequels, King of Thieves and Return of Jafar, but they were both sort of like the part of my friends, the half-assed sequels. Like the ones that Eisner sort of just pumped out. That didn't feature the full glorious animation.
Yeah, like Cinderella 2, Cinderella 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to see like a full cinematic, full honest-to-God sequel to Aladdin. I'd love that.
Yeah, that'd be
the
a
same
really good
amount
one
of careful
too.
Storytelling and good and beautiful animation of the first. That'd be a really good thing in my book, honestly.
I don't think I've ever seen the two direct-to-video sequels they made, but I do own Cinderella 3 on DVD. I dug it out of my closet a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to frame it soon, hang it up on my wall, just to prove that I own a copy of Cinderella 3. I can't remember the subtitle for it, though, but yeah.
Isn't that the one about, like, time travel?
Yes, it's where I think
God.
one of the sisters, like, the shoe fits her foot or something like that. No, it's where the evil godmother gets the fairy godmother's wand and like goes back in time, and I don't know why I know the plot to that movie.
Wait, is this seriously the plot to the movie?
No, that's seriously
it's legitimately the plot.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, whether you want a sequel or not, Disney will give you one.
And
my God.
it's just a sight to behold. If any of you guys can get a copy of Cinderella 3, go ahead and watch it. I'm not saying it's gonna be good. I'm saying it's gonna be bad, but
Watch it anyway.
Yeah, just watch it anyway.
Yeah, like eye-watering bad.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Enough about crappy B-movie sequels that Disney made. I want to get to the main focus of this episode, which is how we all got interested in Disney. And I know Alex kind of spoiled his story last week, but we're gonna have him tell it again anyways this week.
But it's a good story.
It is actually a really good story, but we're gonna go ahead and start with Manny this time.
Okay, let's kick things off. So, to start off, as you guys know, I live in Australia, so obviously I don't have, that access to the park that many of you listeners would have, but I don't know where you live, but... So I took my first trip out to the States in 2009 when I think I was in around, I don't know, first or second grade, and I visited Disneyland with my family during the Halloween season. And that was the only visit I've taken during that sort of October-November period. And that first trip, I enjoyed the park fine. I thought it was amazing. I loved meeting Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy, that whole thing. But then fast forward 2 years later to 2011, and I went back to visit in about July that year. We stayed in the Grand Californian, so obviously after the last trip, after staying on property, it sort of took things to another level of amazingness for me. And we went into DCA one day with my mother, brother, and father, and we went into the Animation Academy. And prior to that point, I don't know why, I had a distaste for art and drawing as like a young kid. I don't know why, I just didn't like it. And we took one of the classes, and I was sort of sitting there, and I was just absolutely mesmerized by how they'd draw these little pictures and make it into like a full-blown story. that just comes onto the screen as if it's reality, you know, and that just really captured my imagination into the world of Disney and all that. And then I went into the park sort of looking at it all with a very different eye. And then after that trip, I came home and I bought the book, How to Draw Mickey and Friends, from the shop afterwards. And I'd come home and a few months later, I'd just sit there drawing and practicing my characters. I'd bring the book to school. I'd show all my friends how amazing it would be. And from that sort of blossomed into like a full passion for the company. I'd watch videos about the history, I'd read books. And then the next year, I went back for another trip to visit the opening of Cars Land in DCA in Buena Vista Street. And that's sort of where it all fully kicked in. I started to know the facts, started to learn things. I sort of just started to really enjoy the park and realize that it's much more than meets the eye, you know? Mm-hmm. That's my story.
That's a good story.
Yeah. I'm sure for a lot of you guys out there, too, it started, like when you first visit the park, you meet the characters, and I mean, I just want to point out that the Animation Academy is kind of an underrated part of DCA. I don't normally see a lot of people in there. I know for sure a lot of people use it to just sit there and take a nap in the air-conditioned room, but if you do have the chance, take the drawing class like Manny mentioned, because you might walk out of it a full-blown Disney lover like Manny did.
You never know.
Alex, what about you?
Oh, I'm not a Disney person. I don't really like Disney at all.
What's a Disney?
Okay. So, basically, I never started out liking Disney. When I was a little kid, I was actually afraid of Disneyland, and my dad used to take me there quite often for a little kid, actually, because, as you know, even back then it was expensive, and yet my dad always managed to find a way to get us to go to Disneyland, which I thought was really cool. But, unfortunately, I was afraid of Disneyland because, to me, Disneyland was very real because I lived I lived a life where seeing something as spectacular as Disneyland, I've never seen anything like it. And so I couldn't do anything but interpret it as real. And so as a little kid, I used to think that, when we rode Star Tours, we really were blasting off into space or, riding Space Mountain, we were like,
Wait, you mean you're not actually blasting out into space?
What?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh,
it's
my
all an
God.
illusion. Oh man, I've just totally popped your guys' bubble.
Hell.
You just broke our magic.
Oh man,
What's
gosh.
the next thing you're going to tell me? Santa isn't real? I don't even know anymore.
So, and my dad really loved to ride the Indiana Jones Adventure. It was his favorite ride. And he used to drag me on it all the time. And I hated it because I was so scared of it. I was, afraid of really being crushed by a boulder and stuff like that. And it just scared the life out of me. And I just hated going to Disneyland. Just hated it. And my dad used to bring me there pretty often. And so finally... But basically, the one thing I did like about Disneyland was Star Tours. Basically, the only ride I could ride at Disneyland was Star Tours. I would ride it over and over again, and I thought it was just so cool because when I was a little kid, I was such a Star Wars fan with my dad and stuff like that. Anyway, so I'm riding Indiana Jones Adventure at one point with my dad, and as usual, I close my eyes and just hope that the ride will end soon. And I remember my dad had just finally had it. He couldn't stand how I was so afraid of the ride, and I just keep my eyes closed. And so as we were going over the scene where you cross over the rickety bridge over the pit of lava, my dad tells me, he goes, "Alex, open your eyes, look." And I said, "No, I'm too scared." And he said, "Look, the bridge isn't moving, and the lava's not real." And I opened my eyes, and it was true. The bridge wasn't moving at all. Just the ropes were shaking. The vehicle was tilting around, and the lava pit wasn't even real. You could see it was just blinking lights and stuff like that. And then from then on, I was just kind of interested. Like, wow, I honestly thought it was real, but it wasn't. Like, how did they do that? And that was one of those things that followed me ever since, was how did they do that? And so from then on, I could ride almost any ride in the park. Like, I would go on Pirates of the Caribbean, and then I would just be so interested in how, like, they made these figures look so realistic and move the way that they do. And in any case, pretty soon after, my dad got me something from Disneyland. At the time, they were selling these DVDs that were called, I think they were called Walt Disney Treasures, and they were basically DVD box sets that came in a little tin packaging, and it showed you, like, different things like history of Disneyland and stuff like that. And so the first one I got showed the Disneyland's 10th anniversary special that aired on Wonderful World of Color in 1965. And that was the very first thing that I ever saw that showed Disneyland back then, and plans for Haunted Mansion being developed, and plans for Pirates of the Caribbean being developed. And I was so interested in it. And for the first time, I was seeing Walt Disney on the screen. And I was so interested in this man who had so much imagination and created it all. And for the first time, the wheels in my head were really turning, trying to figure out who was this great man who created this amazing theme park that could fool you into thinking that you were really on these adventures when really you're still on planet Earth and still, And so ever since, I asked my dad for more of those box sets, because they sold several of them, and I ended up getting more and more of them. My dad would get them for me for Christmas, for my birthday, and stuff like that. And in them were more videos, more history about Disneyland. And the last one I ever got, which was, I think, the last one they ever sold, which was Disneyland Secrets, Stories, and Magic. And today you can see it on YouTube, the full show. But Disneyland Secrets, Stories, and Magic was a big, long documentary series that really went into depth about Disneyland. And that documentary series led me to want to learn more about the park's history. And ever since then, my dad would buy me books. He would buy me these books about Disneyland's history and about individual rides. And I was doing a book report for school one time, and my book report was about Walt Disney, and I ended up reading the book Walt Disney: An American Original by Bob Thomas, which is, if anybody were to ask me what book should I read about Walt Disney, it would be that one, because that one really makes you feel like you are in Walt Disney's head and seeing things through his eyes. So that is what really began everything for me. And ever since then, I've collected Disneyland audio, Disneyland photos. I've got a huge photo database of every ride and every scene in the ride and every animatronic in the ride. So I've got all that. And ever since then, I've been such a history buff with Disney. I never stop looking up things. And now I've just, become everyone's Disneyland historian. So...
And we're grateful for it.
Oh, thank you guys.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I really love listening to these kinds of stories. I don't know, it just makes my heart so warm.
They're really good. Especially
I think you
Alex's.
need to see a
That's like really
cardiologist.
Oh my gosh, Alex is such a jokester today.
I know,
Alex the prankstorian.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a good pun.
I guess I'll go ahead and say mine. So I've been going to Disneyland, I guess, almost every year since I was like 8. My parents loved taking me there. They loved going there.
And I don't really remember much from when I was young, but from what I do remember of like the later years of my teenage existence, I distinctly remember being in this mindset that I was too cool for Disneyland. Like, it was just for little kids, you know, or for like girls to meet the princesses, or for like a 5-year-old to go meet Mickey Mouse. And I was stuck in that mindset for a really long time, and I know for sure a lot of you guys out there know what I'm talking about and feel the same way. Maybe not about Disneyland, but about like other things in life. But I remember one year we were waiting to leave to the airport to go to Disneyland, and I was doing like just YouTube searches about Disneyland, and I came across this YouTuber. I don't know if any of you guys know who he is, but his name is Justin Scarred, and
Yes.
Yes.
and I watched his video about the history of the People Mover, and that really sparked my interest, because I was just sitting there thinking, well, before as a kid, I always wondered what those abandoned tracks were above Tomorrowland. I'd ask my dad every time, and he was like, there used to be a second monorail that went on there, and I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so cool. And then I saw the video about the history of the People Mover, and I was like, oh my gosh, this ride looks amazing. And they just got rid of it. It just disappeared, and I had to find out what happened to it. And I just kept watching YouTube videos, watching, you know, Justin Scarred's videos, his history videos, and eventually I think we were almost late for the flight because I was watching so many Disney YouTube videos on my computer. And then I remember the next year, I think it was the year before the 60th anniversary, or maybe it was the 60th anniversary. I don't know. I might also be getting my years mixed up, so take my year explaining with a grain of salt. But I remember during the 60th anniversary was when it, like, my interest in Disney really picked up. And I remember buying a couple of these, not really picture books, but they're just like small history books that I picked up in California Adventure. And I'd just read those nonstop and look at the pictures of how the park used to look, and then just circle back to vintage YouTube videos about Disneyland, you know, footage from the 80s, the 60s, the 50s. Well, not really the 50s, since not a lot of cameras, but and then more recently is when we went to Disney World a couple, I think 2 years ago, is when I guess is almost like when I peaked Disneyland interest, and I'd just be walking around Disney World. It's not really the same as Disneyland, but then the next year we came back to Disneyland, and that's when I got into photography, and I'd be taking pictures of everything in Disneyland I could see. And really at the start, or not this last year, the last time I went to Disneyland, was really when I got out of that mindset that I was too cool for Disneyland, because before then I was just like, I guess like embarrassed to admit that I liked going to Disneyland, because like I said, I was just thinking that I was just too cool for Disneyland. It's for little kids, you know. But this last past year has really been I guess kind of a roller coaster when it comes to my interest in Disneyland, because I mean, I don't know, it's just an amazing place. I don't know why I turned my back to it all those years that I was going, and here I am now making YouTube videos for you guys.
Gosh,
That's,
you know,
that's a
when
really cool story.
when I hear your guys' stories, it's you guys got interested in Disneyland so recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what year I started researching Disney? Was 2003.
Oh my gosh.
I've been a Disneyland historian for 15 years, and I remember the first time I could actually take someone on a tour of the park and actually know what I was talking about was during the 50th anniversary. I remember it so well. Everyone was wearing their golden ears and stuff like that,
my gosh,
and it was 2005, and at that time I would go to the park with my friends, and I would point out everything as I was walking. I would point at something, and I knew something about that, and I'd point at this, and I knew something about that. And that was the first time I could really go around the park and actually spend a whole day explaining history to people. And that was in 2005 for the 50th anniversary. And I hear you guys like, oh, I got so interested in the 60th anniversary. I'm like, the 60th? Like, to me, that was like a year ago. I don't know how long it was ago. Was it 3 years ago now? But still, it felt like, wow, that was just so recent compared to like when I started getting into Disney.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
It's really crazy. I mean, for me at least, it started, I just was like trying to learn all the smallest like little tidbits I could, like I mentioned earlier about the People Mover. Like, I could finally point out to my dad that it wasn't the second monorail. It was a People Mover. And then I remember always telling my parents, when I first learned it, was the fact that they invented Doritos at Disneyland, and they were like, they didn't invent Doritos at Disneyland. And I was like, yes, they did. I know what I'm talking about, Dad. You just have to believe me.
Just trust me, I know what's up.
Yeah.
It's funny because anyone who's listening right now, it's amazing because when you guys get interested in Disney, you have YouTube to look at. You look at all these things on YouTube. You learn it from YouTube. But in 2003, when I was really learning about Disneyland, I mean, I'm sure YouTube was around, but no one used it in the way that they use it today, because it was, using your internet was still rather new, and internet was really only used for like some bits of research. But my point is that there really wasn't anywhere that you could go to learn all these things about Disneyland on the internet. So for me, I learned all these things from books and from documentary series that were on DVD and stuff like that. And so it's like, so it's interesting because when people learn stuff on my channel, it's like my stuff all came from like books and people and stuff. And I can't remember when I learned about the Doritos at Disneyland. I think I read it. I know where I read it from. I read it from a book by Bruce Gordon, who was an Imagineer. Do you guys know who Bruce Gordon is?
Mm-mm.
I've heard his name.
Well, you should know who he is. He's you've heard of Imagineer Tony Baxter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Of course. Tony Baxter worked on like all the greatest rides at Disneyland. Well, he worked on all those rides with Bruce Gordon. So Bruce Gordon was his second-hand man, kind of. Okay. I mean, technically they were like equals, but Bruce Gordon was always there for every project, and especially Bruce Gordon worked on like what do you call it, Splash Mountain and Big Thunder and all those rides that Tony Baxter worked on. Bruce Gordon was there. And Bruce Gordon was actually a historian himself. He was really into Disneyland history, just like Tony Baxter, but even more so. And so Bruce Gordon wrote all these books while he was still alive. Like, he created my favorite Disneyland book of all time. It's Disneyland Then and Now, I think it's called. And it's a book it's a picture book.
I think I have that book, actually.
I have that book.
Yeah, and it's the coolest thing because you look up, let's say, Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, and it tells you all this stuff on Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, plus the stuff from what was it called before Nature's Wonderland? It was called, help me out if you know it. Before it was Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, it was the Rainbow Caverns Mine Train.
Yep.
Rainbow Caverns Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, and then it became Thunder Mountain. And so that book, it takes you from the past to the present on every ride. And I love that book. And anyway, he wrote that book and stuff like that. And so people, you should get to know Bruce Gordon because he is like the best Disneyland historian there was. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago. But and he really wasn't that old either. So it must have been from health problems or whatever. But the point is that all his books are really cool, and I have a few of them. So I'm special. Yeah.
I have the Then and Now book, and I think that was also one of the books that really inspired me about the history. I distinctly remember reading it back on like a plane trip home from the park and pointing things out. They're really annoying my parents for a 15-hour plane flight.
Oh my gosh. And I don't know. It's really one of my favorite parts about this whole YouTube channel that I've created. It's just spreading... I don't know. It's just like spreading the joy that Disney brings me that I wish I had back when I was however old my viewers are. And it's just trying to show them, that Disneyland, you're not too cool for Disneyland. Disneyland is for everybody, all ages. Even if you're 85 or 16, you're a 15-year-old, I don't know, kid who thinks you're too cool for Disneyland. Disneyland is for everybody, and that's what's so awesome about it.
Really well put.
Yeah. Really well put.
I'm sure we could talk about this for hours, and I don't see why not.
Right.
I mean, I have 12 hours until I plan on going to sleep, so for if you guys want, just go ahead and keep on talking.
That's actually a really interesting topic.
Yeah. Can you guys think of another book or something that you read that was really,
I'm gonna look at my cupboard real quick. Give me a sec, because there's one I'm thinking of. I just can't put a title on it.
That's what I was doing while Alex was talking. I just stepped away to try and find the books that I had hidden in my drawer. But I haven't found it.
Everyone's all looking in their stash, I have to mention another book.
No, I mean, I'm not really much of a book reader. I mean, I've never been really that interested in books. I don't know, that sounds really weird to say, because I'm sure a lot of you guys just love reading, but I'm just one of those people in the minority who just doesn't enjoy reading as much, I guess. I don't know, it's probably just the millennial in me talking, but I don't know, I'm more just from enjoying the movies from when I was a kid and just watching the YouTube videos like I mentioned. Back when I first got into Disneyland, Justin Scard was really my go-to YouTuber when it came to that. Also, I think Fresh Baked, if they were around back then too, I loved watching their videos and just the walkthroughs of the park, seeing them get on different rides and, occasionally point out different facts about the rides. And I don't know, we're really, what's the word? I guess privileged when it comes to just having all this accessible media when it comes to YouTube and that kind of stuff.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just got up and had a look, and I remember the book The Art of Walt Disney. It's a massive, 300-page massive book. It's all white. It's really, really well designed.
I have that. It's huge, right? It's this huge white book. Oh, geez. I have that.
That one's really inspirational. I think Remembering Walt Disney, I don't know if you guys have read that. It's heaps of different accounts from people who knew Walt, ranging from his daughters to park guests who met him in the 60s, and they all share the memories of him. And what was the other one? There was an unofficial Disneyland book, which really got me going. It's called the Unofficial Disneyland Encyclopedia. I used to really enjoy reading that when I was younger. I think that really got me into the history. And also, like Matt said, just a lot of YouTube videos. I think Justin Scar was another big one for me. Fresh Baked, as you said. Adam LaWoo occasionally. All those people really. It's a mixture of things,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, I never had YouTubers to teach me Disneyland. I had to learn it all from observation. And one of the things, if anybody who's listening wants to know how you can learn things that you can't get from other people about Disneyland, is through observation. I've always, when I was a kid, I was really good at those, find the hidden image in a picture kind of thing, like those games that you used to play when you were a kid, where they would hand you a picture of scenery and you're supposed to find a dog bone or a picture of a bow or something in the middle of this scene and pick it out. I was always really good at that. And so I used those skills when I would look at photographs of Disneyland then and now. And so things I would learn about the park that you can't really get from other people were from observation and looking at something and comparing it to today and going, oh my gosh, that thing is still there, or that thing is this now. And so like, so like things like I saw a picture of the riverfront restaurants in Frontierland, and then there was a restaurant there called the Banjo Barbecue, and so I saw that on a picture, and then I realized that the building is still there today, and now today it's not used for anything. It's just a kitchen for Riverbell Terrace, and seeing that there was a little shrub tree back in the 50s that was planted between the two main entrance doors. And I looked at a picture of it now, and it's like, oh, that little shrub tree became this huge tree that covers both balconies. And so, you look at things from back then and see how they are today, like the Mark Twain. If you look really carefully at an old 50s photograph of the Mark Twain, the staircases were in different spots than they are today. They're not in the same spots. So at some point in the past, I think it was in the early 70s, they rebuilt the Mark Twain and put the staircases in different areas. And so so really, if you're really good at telling the difference between two photographs, you can really see how much the park has changed and learn stuff that even YouTubers can't tell you. And so I've been trying to do this on my channel, which was try to tell you things that normally people don't think would matter, and they don't put it on their channel, but I put it on my channel and try to talk about how it matters, like the gas lamps on Main Street and things like that. And of course, recently people have been asking me about how trash and wastewater is removed from the park, so I did an episode on that. But yeah, if you look at old photographs of the park and then compare them to the same areas today, you can learn a lot. Like there was a pathway in the late 1950s because there was a land called Holiday Land, and to get to Holiday Land, you could either get to it via Main Street or Frontierland. And if you went through Main Street, you'd have to enter the main entrance of the park on the left side, and then immediately on your left, once you pass through the Magic Tunnel, would be a pathway next to City Hall, and then that was a dirt path that led between the Disneyland Railroad tracks and Jungle Cruise, and that took you all the way out to the crossover point where you could cross over the railroad tracks and get into Holiday Land. Well, that pathway is still there today. It's used by gardeners.
No way.
It's still there. And I've been back there as a cast member. I've been back behind City Hall, and now there's a road that goes underneath the railroad, and comes out the other side by Indiana Jones Adventure. And so you can't get to the path by just willy-nilly walking onto it. You actually have to climb a ladder now and climb up above the berm that holds back the dirt of the Jungle Cruise. And then there's a gate, and then you have to unlock the gate and get through there. And then there's a pathway that existed back when Holiday Land existed, and it's in between the railroad and the Jungle Cruise. And there are even abandoned Jungle Cruise animals on there.
What?
Are you serious?
Yes, because the Jungle Cruise was moved even further back since then, and there's an elephant from the elephant wading pool, and he's back there because he used to look out onto the railroad. So people from the railroad would pass by and see this elephant looking back at them. Well, that elephant was never moved, and so it's back there, hidden in the trees, and you can't see it from any angle to this day, but it's back there.
Oh my gosh.
So
That is insane.
Insider tips right here, guys.
This is the kind of stuff that I love.
And I learned all this stuff by looking at photographs and comparing them to today. And I can't even tell you how many hours I've spent on Google Maps just looking at Disneyland from a sky point of view. So,
Likewise.
yeah.
Yeah, as a kid,
I love
was,
that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was gonna say, as a kid, I was like really obsessed with maps for some reason. Like wherever I went, if there was a map available, I'd like grab one and just like look at it. I don't know. It's just like really weird to say out loud, but maps are cool, guys. Maps are cool for those of you guys that don't like maps. But I did the same with Disney maps, and the most recent book that I bought was I actually have it here in front of me. It's the Maps of the Disney Parks. Huge book.
Oh,
and it
great
has
book.
maps from the beginning of Disneyland. It even has maps from other parks of that aren't just in California. You know, you guys know what we're talking about. But yeah, I just love maps, and maps was another huge part of why I got interested in Disney.
It's really cool. I can't get over that story about the elephant in the trees now. It's crazy that there's still stuff around like that. That's what I love. That sort of forgotten elements that can only be seen from certain views, not really functioning anymore. It's so cool.
Yeah, like the abandoned parts of Disneyland, or like Disney World too, like Discovery Island, or that water park I can't remember the name of.
River Country?
Yeah, River Country. That's it.
Oh, yeah. River Country.
Yeah, they have a
it's
lot
just
more
like-
abandoned things than we do.
It's just like mysterious. Like, why would Disney go through the trouble to build it, but then just leave it to rot? I don't know.
It's kind of crazy.
Well, if you guys don't have any last things to say.
I was gonna. I had something to ask real quick, kind of just to sidetrack it. Are you guys planning on seeing The Last Jedi next week?
Oh my gosh. Is water wet?
I
I'm
wonder.
So excited. I'm so excited.
Are you going to see it, Alex?
I will, but not next week. I usually
okay.
try to wait till crowds die down a bit. So
Nice.
I'll probably see it towards the end of the month. End of the year.
I wish I had that kind of restraint.
Yeah, me
You know
too.
what it is? I get great anxiety being around a ton of people, which is really weird because that doesn't happen at Disneyland. But
Oh, really?
but when I'm in a theater, I get really anxious because the whole room is full of people, and so I try to go to when like the crowds die down. And there's a really awesome brand new movie theater near my house that no one ever goes to, so it's like really great. I go there all the time to watch my movies because they have like the latest sound system and stuff. Oh gosh, I sound like such a nerd. Anyway.
That's so good. What about Coco? Have you guys seen that yet?
No.
I was supposed to go last week, but the only seats that were available were in the very front row, and I was like, there's no way I'm sitting in the front row to see a movie again, because that's what happened when I saw Justice League, and it just wasn't as enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, because you're like tilting your head up just to look at the whole movie. I can't stand that. How do people do that?
It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Some people like the front row. Like some of my friends, like we were trying to get tickets for Last Jedi a few months when tickets came out because we're that bigger Star Wars nerds, and they're like, let's go front row. I'm like, what? We'll be sitting there straining our eyes trying to look up. Why don't we go like a bit further backwards, like eye level? But they kept insisting to go front row. I don't get it.
I mean, it's understandable if you're at like a sporting event and you like want to get as close as possible, but when it's just like a huge screen in front of you, like 10 feet in front of you, and you're just like looking up full 90 degrees up in the air, it's just not as enjoyable.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to drink your soda when you're looking up like that too. So
They have to provide bendy straws for the people who sit front row.
Yeah.
Free bendy straws for anyone who uses front row
On the
seats.
other hand, having your head facing up like that is perfect for when you just want to swallow your M&Ms whole. You just dump them on in. You know, it goes straight to your gut without having to work and chew it all. You know?
Oh my gosh. This is an insider
cons.
tip techniques to eating efficiently at a movie theater, guys.
Pros and cons of the front row and the Matterhorn Mondays podcast.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
hilarious.
Well, if the viewers are interested, I'd like to do reviews on Coco and maybe The Last Jedi eventually. I'll probably wait on that just to avoid spoilers, because I know how intense some Star Wars fans get about their spoilers, but yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I'm
whenever
really
you
trying
guys
to avoid
see
that.
any of those movies, and whenever I see them, just let me know and we can talk about them.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not movie critics. I mean, I'd like to think I'm a movie critic, but sadly I'm not. I'm.
Oh, come on. Everyone's a critic.
Alex has a point. I think I'm gonna go apply at a Rotten Tomatoes now and rate all the movies 9 out of 10. I don't know what I'm saying, but
How does that work anyway? Like, how do you become like a critic for Rotten Tomatoes? Like, I mean, like, what do they do? Like, they find like the best movies in the world and see what you think about them, and then if you don't think that they're good, then you don't pass or something. I don't know.
Actually,
mean,
an
that
interesting
idea's-
process.
yeah, like that idea's passed through my head a couple times because I think people review movies in like newspapers and stuff, and I always just assumed that Rotten Tomatoes or like IMDb just picked from, I guess, like newspapers. I don't know. It probably has to do with like if you have like a blog or something. I don't know. This is why I'm not a professional critic.
Oh my goodness.
Anyways, I think that's just about gonna wrap up this episode. I hope you all enjoyed, and for comments this week, I want you guys to comment down below what got you interested in Disney, because all three of us, I'm sure, love reading and listening to just those kinds of stories. I don't know. They're just really heartwarming to me, at least, and yeah. Let's see. Alex, why don't you go ahead and let people know how they can support you?
Absolutely. So, for anybody that would like to support my channel, you can turn to the Venmo app that you get for your phone. It's spelled Venmo. And it's a free app that you get for your phone. And what you do is you create an account, and then you look for my username, which is @AYAlexander. And you can create a transfer request for however much tons of money you want to send me. And that's it. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, guys, you should definitely go out and support Alex and his vlogging ventures, because he makes really amazing videos. And for those of you guys who aren't watching his videos, you should head on over, because, like I said, he makes awesome videos. And Manny, too, he makes really awesome videos. Go follow his Twitter. His Twitter and Instagram, they'll be in the comments, or not the comments, in the description of this video, and you guys can support me too, just giving me a subscribe or buying my t-shirts. I've still yet to buy myself a t-shirt, but it'll come eventually down the line.
Yeah, someone needs to buy a t-shirt for Matterhorn Matt. He needs one of his own shirts. They're really comfortable, actually. They're really soft. I liked it a lot.
I made sure to pick out the most comfortable brand of t-shirt that was available, because I know how some of you guys are about your t-shirts. If it's too not comfortable, you won't wear it. If it's too comfortable, you'll wear it. I don't know where I was going with that, but yes. Oh my gosh.
Thanks for having me on again, guys. I really appreciated it. It's a really, really fun time. Thank you.
Yeah, man, no problem. I know Alex and I both enjoy having you on, and
Yep.
Thanks.
in the future, again, you'll probably make a guest appearance on our show again.
Sweet.
Alrighty, guys, that's just about gonna wrap up this episode.
I always forget what to say after this. Okay. As always, I hope you all have a great big beautiful tomorrow.